Moses was born at a time when Israel lived in bondage in Egypt, crushed under forced labor and fear. Pharaoh, threatened by their growing numbers, ordered that every Hebrew boy be killed at birth. To save her child, Moses' mother hid him for 3 months, and when she could hide him no longer, she placed him in a basket among the reeds of the Nile. There, by God's quiet design, Pharaoh's own daughter found the child, took pity on him, and raised him as her son. Though he was born a slave, he grew up in the palace of a king. As a young man, Moses became aware of who he truly was. One day, seeing an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, he intervened and killed the Egyptian. When the deed became known and Pharaoh sought his life, Moses fled Egypt and disappeared into the wilderness of Midian. There he lived as a shepherd, married Zipporah, and spent years in obscurity, far from courts and crowds, learning humility in the silence of the desert. It was there, in the wilderness, that God called him. From a burning bush that was not consumed, the Lord spoke, revealing his name and his purpose. Moses was chosen to return to Egypt and deliver Israel. Moses led the people out by night, through fear and uncertainty, until they stood trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea. At God's command, Moses stretched out his staff, and the sea parted. Israel crossed on dry ground, while their enemies were swallowed behind them. From that moment on, Moses stood as the mediator between God and a young, fragile nation. At Mount Sinai, Moses ascended into God's presence and received the covenant, the law that would shape Israel's life with God and with one another. Time and again, Moses taught, corrected, warned, and guided the people in God's ways. When they rebelled, complained, worshipped idols, or lost faith, Moses stood in the gap. He pleaded with God to spare them, even offering his own life rather than see them destroyed. Again and again, mercy followed his intercession. Yet the burden was heavy. Years of wandering, rebellion, and frustration wore on him. In one moment, provoked by anger and exhaustion, Moses struck the rock when God had commanded him only to speak. Because of this act, both Moses and Aaron were told they would not enter the promised land. The consequence was severe and deeply painful. The man who had led Israel out of slavery would not lead them into rest. Still, Moses did not abandon his calling. Until his final breath, he led, instructed, and warned Israel. He reminded them of God's faithfulness and cautioned them that once they entered the land, ate their fill, and prospered, they would again be tempted to forget the Lord and turn away. God himself told Moses of his coming death and of Israel's future unfaithfulness, but also of his enduring covenant. Before he died, Moses blessed the tribes of Israel one by one. Standing on Mount Nebo, he looked across the Jordan and saw the land he would never enter. There, the servant of the Lord died, and Israel mourned him deeply, for no prophet had ever known God face to face as Moses did. The mantle then passed to Joshua, Moses' faithful servant. God commissioned him to be strong and courageous, to lead Israel across the Jordan, conquer the land, and divide their inheritance among them. Moses' journey ends in Deuteronomy, marked by sorrow and faithfulness, while Joshua's begins, a new chapter of fulfillment recorded in the book of Joshua. It is a story marked by calling, sacrifice, patience, and heartbreak, but also by obedience, mercy, and hope. Moses did not enter the land, but through him, a nation learned how to walk with God.
Did you enjoy the story? Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. This motivates us to create more Bible-inspired stories to share with you. God bless you.